Hello and welcome to the fourth and final video of this course on scholarly writing and publication for lawyers. In the three preceding videos, we learnt about the many different kinds of scholarships and the kinds of publications that lawyers can write for, picking topics and refining topics into claims, and how to go about writing and rewriting your scholarship. Now, let us take a look at the last few steps you need to take before your article is published, and some of the steps you may need to take soon after. At this stage, I am assuming that you already know which publication you are writing for. If you do not, then you should make up your mind now because you cannot proceed further without doing so. This is because the final form in which your work is sent out has a lot to do with which publication you are sending it to. While law reviews sometimes invite people to write for them on specific issues, these are most likely to be senior professionals or experienced scholars. That is, people who have already made a name for themselves as experts on a particular area. Even websites and magazines aimed at lawyers and law students often source their material from such experts. Rarely will a law review invite a young lawyer or law student to contribute to their publication. For a newspaper, it is even more rare that someone is published without an invitation from an editor. Editors, especially those at established newspapers and magazines, are unlikely to take risks with the credibility of their publication. Partly, this is because the editorial process, especially at newspapers, cannot afford a high level of scrutiny as they are published at a high frequency. Newspapers also have larger budgets that are used to rope in expert commentators. Many law reviews, however, publish articles and essays that have been sent in by law students and young lawyers who have not yet established themselves as experts in a particular field. The same is true for publications aimed at lawyers and law students. Both these types of publications will invite contributions from their readers and beyond. Now, if you have not been invited specifically, as is most likely the case if you are a young lawyer or a law student, then you have to send it to the editors of a publication for their consideration. This means that the editors will scrutinize your work and see if it meets their standards and requirements. This is why it is so important to know the specific standards and requirements of the publication you are sending your work to. Here are some of the things you need to learn about the publication you want to send your work to. What areas of law do they prefer to focus on? The word limit they prescribe for particular types of writing, and whether they have any style requirements, whether they have a preferred method of citation, whether there is a deadline for submissions, and how and to whom you should send in your scholarly work to. Nearly all this information, in the case of a law review, will be available when the publishers circulate their call for submissions. For example, the call for submissions from the Journal on Corporate Law and Governance, a journal that comes out of the National Law University in Jodhpur, informs us of the broad theme and sub-themes on which the scholarship is invited. It advises us about the acceptable word limit for different types of work, the fact that all submissions should be accompanied by an abstract, and that all footnoting should follow the standard Indian legal citation style. It also gives us information about what details should accompany the submission, the requirement of originality, and the deadline for the receipt of submissions. Similarly, the call for submissions for the NALSA Law Review, a law review published from the NALSA Law School in Hyderabad, invites scholarship on the subject of liberty and suggests a list of themes that interested authors may take up. It sets word limits for different types of work, sets a deadline date for submissions, recommends all the details that should accompany the submission, and the system of citation that authors should adhere to. The Socio-Legal Review is published from the National Law School of India University in Bangalore Its call for submissions does not impose any themes, but it does set word limits and deadlines for submission and the standard for citation. Read the call for submissions very carefully. When you send your article, essay, notes, or comment to the law review, make sure that you clearly meet all the standards that it has set. The journal may not even consider your work if it does not meet the style requirements. If you did not know which law review you were looking to get published in before you started writing, make sure you make the choice now and meet all its requirements of style and subject matter. And once your final draft incorporating all these requirements is complete, you can submit your work. Make sure that you follow all the requirements of the submissions procedure, including what email address you should be sending your work to, what the subject line is, and what the covering email should contain. Do not, under any circumstances, send in incomplete work or anything that is a work in progress. There is no easier way for your hard work to end up in the trash can. No editor wants to format or footnote your article for you unless it is an absolutely path-breaking work of scholarship. In all likelihood, the editors will consider it disrespectful and your reputation will take some time to make a full recovery. Now, there are some other things that you can do to improve your article before you submit it. You can seek feedback. You could seek feedback from a close circle of friends and colleagues. You can circulate your draft among a few people and see what comments come in. Some of them may pay no attention to your work, but it is quite likely that someone will spot an error in reasoning or point out insufficient evidence for a particular claim. Such a process will allow you to iron out some defects before you send your work for publication. You can also widen the group of people to whom you send your work for preliminary feedback. For example, you can invite comments from the general public if you upload a draft of your work on a website such as the Social Science Research Network or academia.edu. You can even upload your work on a cloud storage service such as Google Drive or Dropbox and then share it widely using your various social networks. Who knows, your work may even attract comments and suggestions from experts. And if you're lucky, you may get some really valuable advice. However, you need to watch out for something. Some publications abhor prior publication of any sort and are quite strict about it. This means that if the article you are going to submit has been published elsewhere before, that is even on SSRN or academia.edu or even Google Drive or Dropbox, they may reject your submission. Please be clear about this point before you seek feedback from the wider public. You can read the call for submissions or speak to editors at the publication to get this information. Now, at this stage, you may think you may have done everything in your control the moment you send your work in. That is far from true. Editorial scrutiny and feedback is an essential part of the process of publication, particularly if you're writing for a law review. You should expect detailed and critical feedback and several rounds of corrections. In law reviews, for instance, the process of editorial feedback and rewriting can take months to complete. Make sure that you remain mentally fresh and eager to meet this challenge as well. Remember, the right kind of editorial support can improve an article considerably. Now, what if your work is rejected? Well, if you believe that your scholarship is deeply researched and well analyzed, there is no reason to give up. Not at this stage. And in this age where you need not rely on anyone else to publish your work, not at any stage. First, it may be worthwhile to find out from an editor why your work was rejected. Was it because your work did not meet style standards? Was it because your work was not appropriate for the kind of readership of that law review? Or was it because the editors felt that your scholarship was not rigorous enough? While it may be useful to seek the answer to this question, you don't have to believe what the editors tell you. Editors often get things wrong, and at other times, prefer not to be specific with their criticism. You may consider submitting it to another publication. If criticism from the previous set of editors was that your work would not appeal to their readers, make sure you rewrite your work again to appeal to the readership of the second journal. Go to the website of the publication and read about its purpose and read prior editions to get a better understanding of the kind of material it publishes. Rewrite your work to reflect this new understanding. You may even consider another kind of publication that has lower standards of editorial scrutiny. Generally speaking, editorial scrutiny at websites and magazines focused on lawyers and law students are not as rigorous as they are at law reviews. You could rewrite your work to meet the style requirements of this other type of publication. For example, if you now want to submit the article to a website read by lawyers, you probably have to chop off much of the text to meet the word limit requirement. So, you should condense your work to further highlight your central claim. The next option may seem a little drastic. You may consider self-publishing. As you probably know, the internet has vastly democratized the ability of an author to reach an audience. Now, anybody with a computer and an internet connection can publish their work. If you are thinking of publishing it yourself, however, be aware that it is a vastly different project from merely writing some scholarship. You are not just publishing an article, you are starting a publication. This means that before publishing any scholarship, you have to give some thought to the publication you are starting. Some of the questions you will have to think about are: what will the subjects of your publication focus on? Will you publish only works of scholarship? Or will you, for example, cover news and developments as well? Will you have a manual of style? For instance, will you be using footnotes or subheadings? Will you be using photographs and images? Will you publish text alone? Why not consider podcasts or videos? How frequently will you publish? Will you be ambitious and try to publish at least twice a week? Or would you prefer to publish slower? Will you invite other authors to write for your publication? What level of editorial scrutiny will you subject others' articles to? Now, these are some of the questions that you will need to answer before you start a publication. While you may not have a clear answer for all of them, reflecting on these questions will help you make choices in the future as well. You will only be able to figure out the answers to many of the questions I raised previously, such as subject matter focus, style, and frequency of publication, as you go along and make choices. You shouldn't let this impede your writing and publication. Remember that at least when you start off, yours will be a small publication that can quite easily revisit some of the choices that it made previously and change direction. Once you have the answer to all or most of these questions, you can shop around for a self-publishing tool. Look at the services offered by WordPress, Google, Tumblr, Medium, and any others that may be available. See which one suits your purpose and select one. Next, read about how best to organize content on the self-publishing tool you have chosen. Do you want to create categories of content? For example, you may want to start a blog on company law, where essays on securities laws are grouped separately from essays on incorporation and essays on winding up of corporations. On WordPress, for example, there are two methods of organizing content: categories and tags. Find out the most suitable method for grouping different pieces of content together using the tool that you have chosen. You should also read some of the literature available on getting the best out of your blog. Do some internet searches and you will come across suggestions that will go a long way in helping you reach a wide audience. For example, you will need to read about how to organize your content better so that it shows up on search results, and about the best ways of distributing your content through pages on social networks, groups, email newsletters, feeds, and so on. Once that is done, you are ready to publish on your own. Rewrite your draft article to meet the style requirements you have set for your own publication. Then publish it. After that, it is about building the community of people who read your work. As I mentioned before, there is a lot of literature available online about how to attract attention to your blog. Try out some of these suggestions, including emailing the article to your network, leveraging your social networks, and so on. Try to compare among these methods so that you can see what works for you. To sustain the attention of your readers, however, apart from producing high-quality content on a regular basis, you need to engage them and respect the attention that they give you. For example, you should promptly reply to the comments that come in from readers. If the comments raise an important question, you could invite the person who left the comment to contribute some content for your publication. Or you could write something specifically addressing the points raised. You should also think of other ways to reward your readers for their attention. This brings us to the end of our course on article writing and publication for lawyers. I would like to leave you with a thought. There is no reason that self-publication should be an alternative to publication in an established law review, magazine, or newspaper, or something you do after facing rejection. In fact, regularly published content of high quality may attract mainstream attention on its own steam. It may not be long before the editor of a newspaper invites you to write an article. So, get started on your scholarship. As I mentioned in the first unit, there is no better way to tell your peers and the wider public about your proficiency with the important legal skill of writing and your expertise in a particular subject area. Now, you also know how to generate topics, refine them, and produce scholarly work. You even know the basics of starting your own web publication. So, what are you waiting for? Thank you.